Everyone respected my father, except the women in his house. I say it every time someone asks about him, because it's the shortest way to explain 22 years of my life. It sums up my childhood in one brutal line: a world where appearances mattered more than reality, and where the ones who truly held the house together, the women, were treated like invisible furniture. My name is Lena Hart, and my father, Richard Hart, was the kind of man people would build statues for if he were gone tomorrow. Publicly, he was a philanthropist, a respected businessman, a speaker at charity events. Privately, he was a dictator in a tailored suit, obsessed with control, appearances, and proving that men, particularly my brother, Caleb, were inherently superior. Caleb was his golden boy, my father's pride and joy, my father's favorite. And me? I was the invisible shadow, the girl whose every achievement was dismissed. Every good grade met with a sneer. Every effort to stand out crushed with a single phrase. What good is your education? You're just going to end up in the kitchen. That line echoed in my ears for years. It wasn't just a sentence, it was my life, a prophecy my father made sure I felt from the moment I could understand words. By high school graduation, I had learned to nod and smile at his public displays of pride for Caleb, who barely passed his classes, who spent more time playing sports than learning, who stumbled through life while my accomplishments were ignored. I had learned to move quietly in the background, to clean, cook, and fold myself into the shape he expected. And yet, in secret, I refused to disappear completely. After graduation, when he proudly announced that my education ended and Caleb's success deserved recognition, I applied, quietly, without a word, to a competitive online university program. I studied nights and weekends, hiding textbooks under my bed, attending lectures on a borrowed laptop, and building a life he never imagined. 4 years later, I had earned a degree, received a job offer at a prestigious firm across the country, and packed my bags to leave immediately after the new year. But first there was Christmas. His annual Christmas banquet. A show of wealth and influence, where men clinked glasses and women served silently, where every detail of my mother and I's labor went unnoticed. This year, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was in the kitchen with Mom, Susan Hart, preparing trays of hors d'oeuvres. She moved quietly beside me, timid, her hands trembling slightly as she arranged the platters. She had always been gentle, quiet, fearful of her husband's wrath, and it broke me to see her still shrinking after all these years. "Just get through tonight, Lena," she whispered. Don't make him angrier than usual." I nodded, forcing the calm I had practiced for years. "I'll be fine," I said, though inside I was anything but. We carried trays to the dining hall. The men were already seated, Caleb at my father's right hand, grinning like a king, Dad at the head of the table, standing and surveying his court. Everyone respected him. Everyone, that is, except us. "Gentlemen," he boomed, lifting a glass. A toast. The room quieted. The women, including me, hovered near the kitchen doorway, invisible, ignored. "Cheers to the only important gender in the world," he announced, voice loud, confident. Caleb laughed first. Naturally. The men around him joined in. Mom froze. I stiffened. And that's why we were created first, to lead the peasants. Peasants. That's what he called us, the women in his house. Mom, me, his sisters-in-law, invisible peasants working tirelessly for his glory. I took a deep breath. Years of anger and silent defiance had built up inside me. I stepped forward. "A gender so important," I said, my voice calm, deliberate, "that your only son still can't graduate college after failing multiple times?" The laughter died instantly. Caleb blinked, confused, his face red. "Lena, what are you doing?" Dad froze mid-toast. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," I said, taking a slow step closer. "Your golden boy, the one you parade around like he's perfect, has failed again. Yet here you are, praising him while ignoring the work and accomplishments of the women who actually hold this family together." The women gasped softly. Some whispered to each other, fear mixed with awe in their eyes. Mom's hand trembled. "Lena," Dad's voice rose, sharp and incredulous. How dare you speak back to me? I smiled faintly. Relax, Dad. This is only the beginning. What do you mean? He demanded, his voice cracking slightly. I said, tapping my pocket, that the world is watching. Every word you've said tonight, every insult, every arrogant comment, is being broadcast live. The room erupted in confusion. Phones buzzed. Guests checked screens. Comments appeared. The men shifted uncomfortably. Some discreetly excused themselves. The women stared in disbelief, silent smiles spreading across faces that had long been silenced. I didn't wait for chaos to settle. I turned and walked back toward the hallway. My mission wasn't revenge. It was liberation. Mom's voice followed me. Lena, what are you doing? Leaving, I said softly. Finally. Upstairs, I changed. The dress Dad had forced me to wear, stiff, old-fashioned, designed to hide me, came off. I slipped into jeans and a soft sweater, sneakers comfortable enough to run away in if I had to. I stared at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Gone was the obedient, overlooked girl. In her place stood someone ready to take her life into her own hands. Mom peeked in hesitantly, her eyes glistening with a mix of worry and pride. Your father, he's going to lose it, she said softly, almost whispering as if speaking too loud might shatter the fragile tension in the house. I know, I said, my voice steady but calm. But he can't stop me anymore. She came closer, trembling, and touched my hands. You really finished school? She asked, her voice almost breaking. Yes. And you have a job lined up?
Ida.
And you're leaving? Yes, Mom, I said, and finally allowed a small, victorious smile to creep in. She sank onto the bed, the weight of her own life pressing down like it always had. I've always wanted to tell him off, she admitted. I just never had the courage. I pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. The years of frustration, the ignored accomplishments, the silent suffering we both endured poured out into that embrace. For the first time, she held me like a daughter who had always been seen, not just a helper, not just a shadow. A soft creak in the hallway caught my attention. Caleb appeared, leaning casually in the doorway, his smirk faltering when he noticed the suitcase. So this is it? He asked, voice dripping with false confidence. You think you're better than all of us now? No, I said firmly, looking him straight in the eyes. I just stopped letting anyone decide who I could be. Downstairs, I could hear Dad's voice rising, frantic and sharp. He was pacing, gesturing wildly, trying to salvage the reputation he thought untouchable. The live stream was going viral. The world was watching him unravel in real time, a side of him no award or speech had ever shown. You step out that door, Lena, he yelled, his voice cracking. And you are no longer my daughter. I paused at the top of the stairs, heart hammering in my chest. For 22 years, I had been invisible.
Dismissed. Mocked.
Told I was less than, told I belonged to the kitchen, told my ambitions were meaningless. But now, I wasn't. I've been ready for this my entire life, I said softly, a quiet power in my voice. Outside, the cold December air hit me as I stepped onto the porch. A car waited, engine idling softly. Evan stood beside it, calm, reassuring, his hand lightly resting on the door handle. He had seen the real me for the first time online, the smart, capable, resilient woman who deserved more than shadows. You ready? He asked, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I took a deep, steadying breath, letting the chill bite at my cheeks. I've been ready for years. We walked to the car together, my suitcase rolling smoothly behind me. The streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, sparkling like a sign that it was finally my turn to shine. As we drove away, I felt the weight of every expectation, every insult, every ignored accomplishment lift off my shoulders. The house faded in the rearview mirror, along with his shouts and Caleb's smirk. My phone buzzed relentlessly beside me, but I ignored it. Screenshots, comments, people asking who I was, why my father behaved the way he did, it didn't matter. I didn't need to check it. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't a servant. I wasn't trapped by a man who valued appearances over reality. I was Lena Hart, free, powerful, and fully in control of my own life. I glanced at Evan, who gave me a look that said he believed in me as much as I finally believed in myself. The road ahead stretched wide and open, and for the first time, every mile promised a life of my choosing. I allowed myself a small laugh, quiet but full of triumph. The city lights blurred past, each one a tiny beacon, and I realized I had never felt so alive. The weight of the past wasn't gone, it never would be, but it no longer had the power to define me. Tonight, I was no longer anyone's shadow. Tonight, I was the person I had always been meant to be. And tomorrow, I would step fully into a life that was mine alone.